Hello, my name is Diana Kairolina. I am a professional tarot reader. Today, we will examine the final two sections of the spread and draw our conclusions. Section 5, His Mark on History. Position 31, How Europe Sees Netanyahu. Tarot card, King of Pentacles, upright. Europe sees Netanyahu as a figure who possesses considerable material resources, stability, strategic calculation, and the ability to manage those resources effectively. The King of Pentacles represents someone who sees the world as a system of exchange, obligations, benefits, security, the cost of decisions, and long-term outcomes. Europe may therefore view him less as an emotional leader and more as a pragmatic politician, someone who thinks in terms of control, tangible resources, and political equivalence. There is weight, experience, and an ability to hold a material and political structure together in this image. At the same time, there is also a sense that human relationships are being translated into the language of calculation and political cost. Position 32. What Europe does not want to acknowledge about itself through this conflict. Tarot card, Ace of Pentacles, reversed. Through this conflict, Europe is confronted with its own internal division over resources, values, and the limits of what can be considered acceptable. The reversed Ace of Pentacles speaks of a divided mind. One part seeks to preserve moral integrity, while another is forced to take interests, benefits, fears, dependencies, and the cost of decisions into account. What Europe does not want to acknowledge is that its position is not entirely coherent. Humanitarian language, political calculation, guilt, caution, and the feeling that too many resources, emotional, diplomatic, historical, and material are being consumed all exist within it simultaneously, perhaps in quantities greater than Europe is prepared to give. Position 3-3. How his era will change Europe's attitude toward Israel. Tarot card, King of Cups, upright. Europe's attitude toward Israel will become more emotionally mature, but also more complex. The King of Cups represents the ability to manage desires, feelings, and powerful emotional impulses. This is neither a sudden rejection nor a blind attachment. It is an attempt to keep a wide range of emotions under control: sympathy, historical memory, anxiety, compassion, and political necessity. Netanyahu's era may compel Europe to speak to Israel not only in the language of alliance or accusation, but in the language of a more mature emotional balance, one in which support does not eliminate questions of humanity, while difficult questions do not necessarily lead to a complete severing of ties. Position 34. How his era will change European policy toward Palestine. Tarot card, Knight of Swords, upright. Europe's policy regarding the protection of Palestine may become sharper, more assertive, and more openly ideological. The upright Knight of Swords carries determination, a willingness to defend one's position, and the readiness to act on behalf of those believed to be in need of protection. What emerges here is no longer gentle diplomatic caution, but a more direct language of demands, public statements, and principled pressure. However, the card also carries a warning. This determination must be based on accurate data and reliable information. Otherwise, the struggle to defend a just position may itself create new mistakes and new tensions. Position 35. The mark Netanyahu will leave on Europe's collective memory. Tarot card, Four of Pentacles, upright. Europe may remember him as a politician, for whom security was synonymous with stability, and stability required the correct strategy. The Four of Pentacles speaks of securing one's foundations, resisting external forces, and striving to preserve balance within the material world. His historical legacy may therefore become associated with the archetype of a fortified stronghold, not with the ease of reconciliation, but with the conviction that the world is constantly changing, and that, in order to preserve continuity, the form of one's defenses must continually change as well. This is the memory of a figure who attempted to maintain stability through material resources and control. Every card connected with how he will be remembered speaks of the material realm, security, reliance on tangible resources, the memory of pain, and the protection of those believed to need protection from Israel. Yet there are no cards suggesting that he will be remembered as the politician who carried out retribution. Position 36. Why this particular legacy will remain. Tarot card, 6 of Pentacles, upright. This legacy will remain because his era is forcing Europe to reconsider the balance of exchange, what it gives, what it receives, whom it supports, whom it helps, and the price it pays to preserve its own equilibrium. The 6 of Pentacles represents a connection with the material world and victory achieved through the wise use of resources, personal connections, and available support. In this sense, the memory of Netanyahu will be associated not only with war or political severity, but with the question of how responsibility is distributed, when assistance becomes a source of strength, when resources create dependency, and how to maintain a balance between human compassion and cold political reality. Brief conclusion to Section 5. The 5th section shows that Netanyahu's legacy in Europe will be connected less with a purely personal judgment of him and more with the themes of resources, security, and balance. Europe sees him as a weighty, pragmatic figure of authority, yet through him it is also confronted with its own inner divisions. His era may make Europe's relationship with Israel more mature and cautious, while making its policy toward Palestine more assertive and direct. What may remain in Europe's collective memory is the image of stability preserved through strategy and control. The reason for this legacy lies in the painful question of equilibrium: whom to help, what to protect, what price to pay, and where the limits of responsibility should be drawn. Section 6. The future and the forecast. Position 37. The immediate political cycle. Tarot card, the Emperor, upright. The immediate political cycle will be defined by control. This card represents more than simply remaining in office. It points to the inner composure of a person who is seeking to regain authority over his own trajectory and over the events unfolding around him during this phase. He will rely on structure, personal will, authority, and the ability to make decisions from a position of strength. What matters here is not the outward splendor of power, but an inner conviction: I can still direct this process. I know what I want, and I am capable of achieving the result. Position 38, the medium-term turning point. Tarot card, 9 of Swords, reversed. Should he continue to make decisions in the same way? The path ahead leads not toward calm confidence, but toward a bitter awakening. The reversed 9 of Swords represents a gradual emergence from anxiety. Yet in place of that anxiety, a justified mistrust begins to appear. This is a turning point at which the stress of the past can no longer simply be endured or repeated. Tactics must change. Alliances and relationships must be reconsidered, and new ways of moving forward must be found if the previous pattern is not to repeat itself. Politically, this resembles a stage at which fear gives way to stern caution. Position 39. What could change his trajectory? Tarot card, Wheel of Fortune, upright. His trajectory could be altered by a brief convergence of circumstances, something that cannot be considered for long and cannot be fully planned in advance. The Wheel of Fortune creates a narrow passage between the past and the future. An opportunity appears quickly, and it may disappear just as quickly. It may take the form of a major event, an external proposal, a new political turn, or an unexpected opening. Yet the decisive factor will not be the opportunity itself, but his ability to adapt immediately and hold on to the height to which this sudden turn of fate carries him. Position 40. How his political archetype comes to an end. Tarot card, 2 of Wands, upright. His political archetype does not end through a sudden collapse. It ends through the necessity of compromise. The Two of Wands represents a choice in which conflicting priorities must be weighed against one another. What matters is not the concession itself, but the final outcome. The image of the unyielding leader begins to recede when reality demands not only strength, but also the ability to negotiate, listen to the other side, and preserve what matters most by accepting a partial retreat. This is not defeat in the literal sense. It is a transition from the logic of holding power to the logic of achieving a result. Position 41. Another politician will value in Netanyahu's legacy after his departure. Tarot card, the Magician, upright. What other politicians may inherit from him is a method of active engagement, the conviction that the opportunity already exists, the model is ready, the necessary tools are at hand, and therefore, one must act. The upright magician represents not passive waiting, but the ability to transform an idea into a tangible result through skill, experience, and willpower. This may be the essence of his legacy as a political method. The politician does not wait for ideal circumstances. He takes the resources available to him, defines the boundaries of the task, and acts as though destiny itself can be shaped with his own hands. Position 42. Final card. Does he have power over his own destiny? Tarot card, Three of Wands, reversed. The Tarot's answer. This card does not offer an unequivocal yes. It represents a person who understands much of what is happening on a rational level, but who is not inwardly prepared to accept an ending. The reversed Three of Wands suggests that the process may already have run its course, yet there is no inner acceptance of that reality. As a result, a paralysis of decision arises, outward movement continues, but inwardly, the final point has never been placed. He has power over his actions, his tactics, his sudden advances, and his methods, yet he does not have complete power over the greater course of his destiny. His central weakness lies in his inability to recognize, at the right moment, that one stage has ended, and that the previous form of control must be released. Position 43. What he will remember as he departs, the threshold between life and death. Tarot card, the High Priestess, reversed. The Tarot's answer. Sooner or later, every human life comes to an end. My question is not concerned with the manner of his death, whether it will be natural or otherwise. We all cross this threshold, and one day he will cross it as well. According to this card, the crossing does not appear to be one of simple or serene reconciliation. The reversed High Priestess represents a division between what a person understands intellectually and what the deepest part of the self is unable to accept. What we see here may be not so much a fear of death as a painful confrontation with a truth that does not correspond to the worldview the person once held. There is great weariness of the soul within this card, an inner contradiction, and a sense that the rational mind followed its chosen path for a very long time, while the deeper emotional self never fully accepted that path. This is not the memory of an external victory or defeat. It is the memory of the place within oneself where the truth remained unresolved. Brief conclusion to Section 6. The final section shows that the immediate future is built upon control, personal will, and the desire to preserve authority over events. In the medium term, however, the path leads toward mistrust and the need to rebuild relationships and alliances. The course of events may be changed by a sudden opportunity or an external turn that demands immediate adaptation. The end of his political image is connected not with complete capitulation, but with compromise. Reality gradually forces him to recognize that the result matters more than preserving the former shape of power. His method may be inherited by others as a model of active, decisive action, yet the final card reveals the limits of personal authority. He may influence events, But his greatest difficulty lies in accepting the moment, when a particular chapter has already come to an end. The central formula of the spread can be expressed as follows. The conflict is greater than Netanyahu, but his personal style of leadership is a powerful catalyst within it. He influences the course of events, but he does not have complete control over their final outcome. Final conclusions from the entire spread. The overall image presented by the spread is that of a politician standing, not above a great divide, but firmly on one side of it. He does not occupy a neutral position, from which both sides can be observed equally. He stands where the divide is experienced as an existential threat, as an edge beyond which no further retreat is possible. For this reason, he does not look upon both sides at once. He looks primarily from the perspective of defense, memory, control, and the necessity of survival. His gaze is directed into the abyss, not with curiosity, but with the tense determination to hold the ground upon which his people, his power, and his own inner mythology are standing. Yet, when a person spends too long looking into such a divide, he begins to see more than an enemy. Within the depths of that abyss lies the reflection of everything that cannot be completely defeated by force, the suffering of others, one's own fear, the exhaustion of history, the price of every decision, and the faces of those who found themselves caught between politics and destiny. The divide does not reveal to him a simple picture of us and them. It reveals the terrifying depth of a shared wound, in which each side remembers its own suffering more vividly than it remembers the suffering of the other. The final image is that of a politician standing at the edge of a historical fracture. He is trying to keep his side from falling. Yet the longer he looks down, the clearer it becomes that the abyss does not belong solely to his opponent. It also runs through him, through his decisions, through society, and through the collective memory of Europe, Israel, and the entire region. He is capable of influencing the course of events, but the fracture itself is older and greater than his authority. He holds the edge, but he did not create the entire abyss. And yet, whether that fracture grows deeper depends greatly on how he chooses to hold that edge with cold calculation or with a sense of human proportion.